Okay, so we're going to look at some more problems dealing with factoring trinomials and where the leading coefficient is not 1. And we're going to continue doing these using trial and error FOIL. And so this is a continuation of a previous lesson where we worked out examples. Okay, and so we're going to go through the same process, the same thought processes as we go through this. But this is just some more examples dealing with this process. So let's look at number 1. So let's say number 1, I want to factor this trinomial. So 5x squared minus x minus 18. Okay, so I want to factor this. And so remember, when we did this, we always look for GCF. So whenever you're factoring a polynomial, and this polynomial is this trinomial here, so we always want to look for GCF. So the GCF of those three terms is 1. So once you know that the GCF is 1, then the next step to factor a trinomial is to try and factor this as two binomials. Okay? So those are your two factors, and your two factors will be two binomials. Now remember, if you exhaust all possibilities, it could be that when you exhaust all possibilities, that would mean that this polynomial is prime. And remember, prime means cannot be factored. Okay, so remember, the first thing you want to do is look at the GCF, then you want to do those two binomials, and now you're going to do this by thinking about FOIL. And this is trial and error. You're going to try some factors, some numbers, some terms. If those doesn't work, you're going to try something else. So let's do F first. Always do F first. So remember, to get F, when you did the FOIL method, F was the product of those two first terms here. And so those two first terms gave you that first term here. Again, make sure it's in descending order. And so when I think about 5's primes, that makes things a lot easier for me since 5 prime, because the only possibility for 5x squared is 5x and x. That's the only possibility. So either I put the x here or the 5x here. Does not matter. Now let's get the last term. The last term's negative 18, right? Now in order for us to get a negative last term, a negative 18, that means that these signs in here have to be different. So think about again that last here. So your last is this times this gives you that. And the only possibility, the only way is for one to be positive, the other to be negative. And just go ahead and do it for right now. Put one positive, one negative. That's what I would do. Because you're going to be checking anyway, so you can easily determine quickly whether you have it correct or not. Now, look at the absolute value of negative 18. The absolute value of negative 18 is 18, right? 18 is not prime. 18 is composite. So what you want to think about is this. What are the possibilities for 18? What are the factors of 18? What two factors multiplied together will give you 18? Well, obviously 18 and 1, right? Because 18 times 1 is 18. And then remember, you're looking for two factors whose product is 18. And again, use your calculator if you need to. And you know that 3 times 6 is 18, right? Now here's the question. Are those the only two? No, because if you look at 6, isn't 6 3 times 2? And I don't have a 2 listed anywhere. So let's put a 2. So 2 times what is 18? Well, 2 times 9 is 18. And then that should take care of all your possibilities. So those are the only two factors, the only pairs of factors whose product is 18. Okay, so think about our previous lesson. So which of these pairs do you want to try first? So if you want to try 3 and 6, 2, 9, 18, 1, I would always tend, and it doesn't always work, you saw that in the previous lesson, I would tend to always use the pair that's closer together on the number line, like 3 and 6, rather than 18 and 1. So let's do 3 and 6. So since I'm using 3 and 6, and let's put 3 in one spot, 6 in the other, and then just check. So for example, notice what I'm doing, just putting 3 here, 6 here. That's all I'm doing. Now you got to check though. So 5x times x is 5x squared. Now go to the last. Positive 3 times a negative 6 is negative 18, so that's good. The only thing I got to do now is check for that middle term. So to get that middle term, that's your outer and your inner. So let's get the outer. What's the outer? 5x times negative 6 is negative 30x. What's the inner? 3x. Will I ever get a negative x? No, because 3x to the negative 30x to the negative 27x. And by the way, some of you would have known that 6 would not have gone here because you, in your mind, you're looking at this as you're filling it in. So as you're filling in these factors, you're looking at what you're getting here in your mind, what you're getting here, and what you want. So you knew that 6 could not go here. So then we're going to cross this out because that didn't work. So let's try something else. So here's the idea of trial and error. I'm still going to put 5x here and x here because there's the only possibility of 5x squared is this to be 5x and this to be x. Now again, so we know that 3 and negative 6 in that order. Let me go ahead and put this as well. So we know that 3 and negative 6 in that order didn't work. So maybe switching these. So let's put 6 here, 3 here. See what happens. Okay. So you may, and then right away look at your outer and your inner. What's the outer? Negative 15x. What's the inner? 6x. What do you get when I add those up? Negative 9x. You know that didn't work, right? That didn't work. So 3 and 6 doesn't work probably because I exhausted all possibilities, right? And then 5x squared is prime. So I've exhausted all possibilities. So I know that 5 and 6 will not be the ones I need. So let's look at 2 and 9 then. So you see trial and error. Let's look at 2 and 9. So let's go ahead and, again, 5x and x, plus minus. And I know it's plus and minus. I know the signs are different. Why do I know the signs are different? Because this last sign's negative. The only way to get a negative 18 is for one to be positive, the other to be negative. And so let's do 2 and 9. So let's put the 9 here, the 2 there, and see what happens. Okay? So now before I go one, you notice that I put the 9 here and the 2 there, and then I did not put the 2 here and the 9 here because I knew if I put the 9 here, in your mind, you know right away that would not work because if you put the 9 here, 5 times 9 is 45. That is a negative 1x right here. So I know that would not work. So let's just use this instead. So before you say that's the answer, always check. 5x times x is 5x squared. So there's my f. Let's do the L. A positive 9 times a negative 2 is a negative 18. That's what I wanted. So far I'm good. Now let's check the middle. What is 5x times a negative 2? Negative 10x. What is 9x times x? 9x. And when I add them up, what's 9x and negative 10x? Negative x, and that is what you wanted. So hey, you got it. There's the answer. So the answer will be 5x plus 9 times x minus 2. And remember, multiplication is commutative, so someone else could have said x minus 2 times 5x plus 9. Okay? All right, so that was number 1. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, let's suppose we had this. All right, number 2. So suppose that number 2, I have so let's see. All right, so we have negative 63 plus 17r plus 20r squared. So negative 63 plus 17r plus 20r squared. Okay? All right, so what do you think you may want to do first? What do you think you may want to do first? Yeah, so you want to try and put this in descending order, right? Makes things a lot easier. It makes things a lot easier when factoring when your leading term is r squared. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this as 20r squared plus 17r minus 63. Okay, so always make sure it's in descending order. It makes things a lot easier for you. Okay, now find the GCF of those three terms. So what's the GCF of those three terms? Well, the GCF is 1. So since the GCF is 1, I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. Okay? All right, now this is not as easy as some of the other ones you've had before because notice that the leading coefficient 20, that's not prime, and the absolute value of negative 63, which is 63, that's not prime either. So I may do multiple trial and errors several times before I get the right one I need. Okay, so let's think about 20r squared. So remember FOIL, F-O-I-L. So we're going to look at F first. So what two factors multiply together is 20r squared? So let's think about 20 for a moment. Think about 20. Well, there's 20 times 1. there's 10 times 2, there's 5 times 4, right? And it looks like that's all the possibilities. So those are 3 possibilities. What do you want to try first? You want to? Yeah, I would go ahead, even though it doesn't always work. I would go ahead and choose the numbers that are closer together on the number line. Choose the pair that's closer together on the number line. So 5 and 4 are closer together than the others are. So I'm going to put 5R and 4. It may not work. It may be that 10 and 2 works. So, all right, so that takes care of the F. Now let's get the L. So the L, remember, comes from these two multiplied together. Okay, so my last sign's negative, though, so always look at your signs. Since the last sign's negative, what does that mean about these signs in here? That means the signs are different. So let's go ahead for right now. Make one positive, one negative. Because you're going to be checking the end. If it doesn't work, you'll switch them. You'll do something different. Okay, let's think about 63. The absolute value of negative 63 is 63. Let's think about 63. What are the positives of 63? So 63 times 1 is 63. So let's think about some others. So 63 divided by 3, so 3 times 21, right? All right, that's 63. Let's see, 7 goes into 21, so 7 times what? 63. So 63, if you need to use your calculator, 63 divided by 7 is 9. All right. And then let's see what else. So I think that takes care of all of it because 21 is 7 times 3. I have a 7, I have the 3. 9 is 3 times 3. I have to factor 3 here. So that's it. So that should take care of it. So of those 3 pairs, though, which one do you want to try? Yeah, I would go ahead and try the 7 and the 9 first. All right, I would try that first. Now, again, be strategic. So the more you do, the quicker you become at determining where to put the 9, where to put the 7. Because in your mind, you're using the idea of that outer and the inner, using the idea of outer and inner, and you're looking at that middle term. So in your mind, we're going to start thinking like this now. In your mind, if I put the 9 here, and I look at this, then that means the 7 have to go here. Well, I got this. Or if I put the 7 here and the 9 here, well, I get this. Okay? So it may be that I'm going to try and put the 9 here and the 7 here and see what happens. It may not work, but let's see what happens. Okay, so don't say that's the answer without checking. Okay, so FYL. So 3R times 4R, 5R times 4R is 20R squared. A positive 7 times a negative 9 is a negative 63, so I'm good with my L. Now let's do the outer and the inner, because remember you want that middle term. So the outer, what is 5R times a negative 9? Okay, that's negative 5R, right? What is 7R times 7 times 4R? Well, that's 28R. And when I add these, what's 28 plus a negative 45? 28 plus a negative 45. That gives me negative 17, right? So that's negative 17R. Is that what you wanted? Nope. But what do you notice about those two terms here? 17R and negative 17R. Well, remember that's they're opposites. So from a previous lesson, what that means is that since those are opposite, that means all I have to do is change these signs. So the order of those terms are correct. It's just the signs that needs to be changed. So then I know that's not going to work for this. So then I'm going to try this. So instead of saying 5R plus 7, we're going to say 5R minus 7. And instead of saying 4R minus 9, I'm going to say 4R plus 9. Okay, and again, always check. 5R times 4R is 20R squared. A negative 7 times a positive 9 is a negative 63. Now let's do the outer and inner. So my outer, 5R times 9 is 45R. A negative 7 times 4R is a negative 28R. And when I add them up, I get 17R. So the answer then will be 5R minus 7 times 4R plus 9, or 4R plus 9 times 5R minus 7. Okay? All right, so notice the thought process as we go through this. Number 3, so let's suppose in number 3, I have 12c squared minus 29c plus 15. So 12c squared minus 29c plus 15. Okay, so again, it's a little bit more challenging because 12 is not prime and 15 is not prime. So those are composite numbers. So it may be that I may try different things before I get to the right pairs that I need. Okay, so again, first of all, you got to look for the GCF of those three terms. The GCF of this trinomial, this polynomial is 1. So the GCF is 1. Once we know the GCF is 1, we're going to try and factor this as two binomials. If I exhaust all possibilities, then I say this polynomial is prime, which means it cannot be factored. Okay, so let's see what we get. So let's look at, remember, in terms of FYL, you got to do the F first. Do F first. So what two factors multiplied together is 12c squared? Well, let's look at 12 first. So there are several. There's 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 3 times 4. So they're the only possibilities. So they're the only pairs of numbers, the only pairs of factors that will give you 12. Of those three pairs, what do you want to try first? You want to try 3 and 4? Okay. So let's put 3c, 4c. Someone else could have said 4c, 3c. Does not matter. Because remember, multiplication is commutative. Okay, the last sign's positive. What does that mean about these signs in here, the last sign's positive? Well, that means these signs have to be the same. And remember, it's going to be that you want that middle term to be negative, so that means that these signs have to be both negative. Because the negative times the negative is a positive. And then you want the middle sign to be negative. In order for that to happen, the outer has to be negative, and the inner has to be negative. Okay? All right, and let's think about 15. There's two possibilities of 15. 15 and 1, 3 and 5. What do you want to try? You want to try 3 and 5 first? That's what I would do. Okay, now here's the question. So if we're going to try in 3 and 5, so we're going to do this. If we're going to try this, and think about our discussions in previous lessons. Can I put the 3 here? No. You know right away I cannot put the 3 here. Because if you look at 3c minus 3, that means I can factor out a 3, couldn't I? Which means that each term is divisible by 3, and it's not, because negative 29 is not divisible by 3. So I know I cannot put the 3 there. So be strategic. Always think like this. It helps with your thought processes to have those tools in your possession. So that means I'm going to put the 5 here and the 3 there. All right, now let's check. So let's go back to F. Always verify. 3c times 4c is 12c squared. Let's go to the L next. Negative 5 times negative 3 is a positive 15. So that checks out. Let's do the outer and the inner. So remember, you want a negative 29c. What is the outer? What is 3c times a negative 3? Well, that's a negative 9c. What is a negative, now the inner, what is a negative 5 times 4c? Well, that's a negative 20c. And when I add them up, a negative 20c and a negative 9c is a negative 29c, which is what you wanted. So there's the answer. So the answer then will be 3c minus 5 times 4c minus 3, or you can say 4c minus 3 times 3c minus 5. Okay? All right, so that was number 3. Let's look at number 4. Number 4. Okay, so number 4. So with the previous lesson and with this lesson, you should be getting the handle on how to strategically be able to factor these without too much difficulty. All right, so this is number 4. So number 4, let's suppose we have 7x squared minus 10x plus 3. Now, again, this is the easy kind, isn't it? Why is that the easy kind? Oh, we already did that. I'm sorry. We did that one in a previous lesson, so I don't want to do that again. Excuse me. I'm very, very sorry about that. So that was from a previous lesson. So let's try this one. Let's try. Okay, so let's try this one. 8x squared plus 31x minus 4. So 8x squared plus 31x minus 4. Okay, so it's in descending order. The GCF is 1. So once the GCF is 1, I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. And again, if I try all possibilities and nothing works, then we say it's prime. And again, we're going to use a FOIL method, trial and error. All right, so let's think about F. Always go to F first. So what two factors multiplied together will give me 8x squared. Well, there's two possibilities. There's 8 and 1, 4 and 2. Okay? So of those two possibilities, of those two pairs, which one do you want to try first? You want to try 4 and 2? Okay, I would try 4 and 2, see if that works. So 4x, 2x. Okay? All right, now, the last sign's negative, right? So that means that in order to get a negative 4, that means one has to be positive, the other one has to be negative. Y'all agree with that? Okay. Now, let's think about 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4, so let's do the factors of 4. The factors of 4 are 2 and 2, 4 and 1. Those are the only possibilities. Now, here's what I want you to think about. Here's what I want you to think about. You remember when we first did this, we said, oh, we're going to try 8 and 1 and 4 and 2. And normally what you're going to do is you're going to choose the pairs that are close together in the number line. That's what you're going to do first. That's the strategic approach. But when so I chose 4 and 2. So I said 4x and 2x. Okay, so that's what we're doing, and so we're going to continue on. Now when I get to this part though, see, this is where your rationalization, your thought process has become extremely important. If I use either one of those, 2 and 2, so let's think about 2 and 2. So if I put 2 and 2, and notice I put a pencil here. If I put 2 and 2, I know that cannot work, right? Because that means I can factor out a 2, and then I can factor out a 2 here, which means that each of those is at least divisible by 2, and it's not, because 31 is not divisible by 2. So I know I cannot use 2 and 2. And the same thing for 4 and 1, right? You may say, well, if you put the 4 here, or if you put the 4 here, you have an issue. Because no matter where you put the 4, you can factor out a 4, and here you can factor out a 2, right? So what does that mean then? Because that's the only possibility. So I have to use one of these. So what does that mean about our choice here then? Yep, that means our choice is not going to be 4 and 2. It's not going to be 4x and 2x. So then that means then I'm going to try 8x and 1. So 8x and then x, and then let's say plus and minus. Okay? All right. Now, let's go back here. So which of those you want to try now? You want to try 2 and 2 and then 4 and 1? You know, now remember, listen about thought processes. We always tend to choose the pair that's close together in the number line, right? But I know I cannot use 2 and 2. Because no matter where I put the 2 and the 2, look at this. 8x and 2x, I can factor out a 2. Which means that each of these is divisible by 2, and that's not true. 31 is not divisible by 2. So that means I cannot use 2 and 2. So that only gives me one possibility then, and that's 4 and 1. And that's what we're going to use, 4 and 1. You saw the thought processes? Go back, rewind this if you need to, and think about our thought processes. Okay, so I know I'm going to have to use 4 and 1. Okay, now here's the other question then. All right, if I'm going to use 4 and 1, am I going to put the 4 here? Nope, because if you put the 4 here, then that means you can do what? That means you can factor out a 4, which means the GCF is not 1, which it is 1. Because remember, all these are 31 is not divisible by 4. So that means then that I got to put the 4 here and then the 1 here. That's what that means. Okay? So notice the thought processes. So I'm put the 1 here and the 4 here. All right, now before you say that's the answer, you better check, because notice I don't have anything checked off here. I don't have all of these checked off. So let's go back to the F. 8x times x is 8x squared. So we're good so far. We'll check that off. Now let's go to the last. 1 times a negative 4 is a negative 4. So that's good. Now let's check the middle. So the middle you get from here now. So the outer, what's 8x times negative 4? Well, that's negative 32x. What is 1 times x? Well, that's x. When I add them up, what do you get? Negative 31x. What'd you want? A positive 31x. Hey, we're almost there because those are opposites of each other, right? So what that means then, all I need to do is change these signs. So since that didn't work, I'm going to try this now. So the answer is going to be, instead of saying 8x plus 1, it'll be 8x minus 1. And instead of saying x minus 4, it'll be x plus 4. And then before you say that's the answer, again, always go back and verify. 8x times x, 8x squared. A negative 1 times 4, negative 4. Now let's do the outer and the inner. The outer this time, 8x times 4 is 32x, 32x. The inner, negative 1 times x is a negative x. I'm going to add them up. I get 31x, which is what you wanted. So there's the answer. So the answer then will be 8x minus 1 times x plus 4, or you can say x plus 4 times 8x minus 1. Okay? All right, and then let's look at this one, number 5. So suppose in number 5 we have, let's see, this is 15x squared minus 4x plus 7. So 15x squared minus 4x plus 7. So it's in descending order. What's the GCF? GCF is 1. And so since the GCF is 1, we're going to go directly to the two binomials, just like that. And so let's just try some possibilities. So 15's not prime, but 7 is, so that's not that bad. It's not going to be that difficult. Also, we know the last sign's positive, so that means these signs in here are going to be the same. It'll be both negative, so that makes things a little bit easier for us as well. So let's go back to 15x squared. What are the possibilities for 15? Well, 15 and 1, and don't forget we're going to need FOIL here, and then 5 and 3, right? So let's try 5 and 3 first. So we're going to say 5x, 3x. And then, again, the last sign's positive, so that means these signs are the same, both negative. And the possibilities for 7, there's only one possibility, 7 and 1. So let's put the 7 here, 1 there, and then check. 5x times 3x is 15x squared. Negative 7 times negative 1 is a positive 7. Now so that checks off, that checks off. Now let's do the outer and the inner. The outer, what is 5x times negative 1? Negative 5x. What's negative 7 times 3x? Negative 21x. What do I get when I add them up? Negative 26x. Is that what you wanted? Nope. So then you may say, all right, well, let's switch the 7 and the 1. Okay, well, let's do that. Let's see what happens. Let's switch them. So 5x minus 1 times 3x minus 7. So we're going to switch the 7 to 1. Let's see what happens now. So now the outer is negative 35x. The inner is negative 3x. And when I add them up, I get negative 38x, which is not what I wanted because I wanted negative 4x. Okay, so that didn't work. So then what do you think? So let's try 15 and 1 then, right? Okay, so let's try 15 and 1. So 15x, x, they're both negative, right? And then the only possibility for 7 is 7 and 1. So let's put 7 here, 1 there, and see what happens. What's the outer? Negative 15x. What's the inner? Negative 7x. What do you get when you add them up? Negative 15x and negative 7x is a negative, what's that, 22x? Which is not what you wanted. And then if you switch to 7 to 1 again, will that help any? No, it will not, right? It will not help at all if you switch the 1 and the 7. Because notice that's a much larger product here. So 15 times a negative, 15x times a negative 7, so 15 times 7 is 105. So this is a negative 105x. This is a negative 1x. That's a negative 106x. So we have exhausted all possibilities, didn't we? So I went through all of this. Nothing works. I went through all my possibilities. Nothing works. So what does that mean about this polynomial, this trinomial? So the answer is prime. That's your answer. So the answer is prime. So that means that this polynomial cannot be factored. Can be factored as two binomials. Okay? All right, so that should take care of this part of our lesson. So remember, there are basically two parts to our study on factoring trinomials where a does not equal 1. So make sure, it is very important, you go back to the previous lesson dealing with this. So you can look at all these examples, all the thought processes, and this lesson as well. Okay? So that takes care of this lesson.